Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I'm joined by Jackson Bezdek once again. And Bez, we have a special episode planned today. We will be grading Kansas's roster performance so far this season, as it is the end of the first semester, giving out kind of some semester grades here. So without further ado, let's kind of get into it. Episode 52 of The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast, coming right up next. All right, everybody, before we begin, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Coach Bez for leading his sixth grade girls to a tournament championship this week. And as you will see, Bez was maybe doing a little bit of coaching. Bez, congrats, my man.
Thank you, Sam. Voice took a hit, but we're hanging in there. We're going strong. I mean, shoot, that was the fourth or fifth weekend for tournaments, and yeah, sixth graders finally locked it in. It was fun. It was really fun. It's a whole different feeling than being a player, being a fan. I don't know. I get more locked into these games than I ever have in my life. It's a blast. So appreciate that. Appreciate everybody. Sixth graders got a dub, and yeah, fun times. So let's get on to the Jayhawks.
Yeah, there we go, Bez. There we go. First tournament W under his belt. And it's the first semester. It's gone at the University of Kansas. It's currently finals week. I'll just say, Bez, it feels really good around this time of year to actually be done with school now. Don't have to worry about finals. Don't have to worry about any of that, unlike some of my friends who are still in school. But yeah, with it just kind of being the end of the semester, we're going to do what we did last year in an episode. We're going to just kind of grade all the KU players and then the team, just giving out grades and kind of evaluating everybody's performance so far. So we're going to start with the man in charge, the point guard, Dajuan Harris. He's averaging 11.1 points, 2.1 rebounds, and 5.9 assists. He's also shooting 46% from the field, 30% from three, which is pretty down for his career. He also ranks number 17 nationally in assist to turnover ratio, and he's number 25 overall in assists per game. With all that, Bez, what is your grade for Dajuan Harris? I see we have the same grade written down here.
Dajuan is my one and only A on the entire team. I think that I give him an A. I'd like to go back last year and see what I gave him to, because it was probably pretty freaking high because he's Dajuan Harris. But I feel like his leadership this year has taken 10, 15 steps higher. I mean, it's been noticeable. It was noticeable in the one game I went to in person. It's been noticeable through the TV. He's been scoring more. He's been attempting more shots. That's been really nice to see. But I think him coming in to this season, after last season, especially when, the core three is the exact same, I still feel like he's taken more of a leadership role this year. And this Kansas team really needs that right now. And we saw that, 2 losses in a row. It's really nice to have a point guard like Dajuan Harris to right the ship. And, that's what they did against NC State. And that's what he's going to continue to do all year. So up to now, I got him at an A.
Yeah, I also have an A. You mentioned the core three there. Honestly, out of those three, Dajuan is probably the one who's improved the most.
Right.
I would say. I mean, I think it helps that this season he has some people behind him, to kind of alleviate some pressure off of him, because he was doing everything last year. And I think we're kind of seeing that on the defensive side of the floor. I mean, he's up to 1.8 steals per game, the highest of his career, besides the year he won the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year. Just the thing with Dajuan is he's Kansas's most consistent player. Every single night what you're going to get out of Dajuan nowadays, and he's taking more shots. So nowadays you're going to get double-digit points and 5, 6, 7, 8 assists per game out of Dajuan Harris. So, yeah, I mean, Kansas fans have been talking for years and years about, he needs to shoot more, he needs to score more. He's doing that a little bit more this year, and he's just doing exactly what Kansas needs him to do out there on the court, leading the team. I think that's probably the easiest A that we could give out. It's to Dajuan Harris. So A's across the board for Dajuan. Now we're going to talk about the other guard, the two guard for this team, Zeke Mayo. Transferred in from South Dakota State. Right now he's averaging 12.5 points, 3.8 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. He's shooting only 44% from the field, though, and 35% from three. And if you remember, Zeke Mayo said that he wanted to be around 40% from three. One interesting thing that I saw just kind of digging into the stats is he's number 16 in the country in fouls per 40 minutes. He only commits one foul per 40 minutes, Bez. So what's your grade for Zeke? I feel like we have a lot we could talk about with this.
I have him at a B minus. And I was actually thinking about this back in classes I used to take where, I got a couple B minuses in my repertoire. And B minus is like, you go to class, you do the in-class stuff. That's great. You mess up on a couple of quizzes. Zeke Mayo's had a couple of rough games, but he's been in all of them. But he's had a couple rough ones. But he's done great on a couple projects, right? Against North Carolina and NC State. He got A's on those projects. He played great games, but it has not been consistent whatsoever. And I think Zeke probably would give himself a C or a C plus, if I'm being honest. I bet he expects a lot more from him, but I kept him at a B minus just because the 12 points a game, that's kind of where I wanted him to be, this season, around 12 or 14. So I can't get him too low because the actual production numbers are coming in. They're not too bad, but shooting needs to get better and just overall game presence. Like he needs to be felt, his gravity needs to be felt more in Big 12 play, I think. So there's still a ton of room to go, but I got him at a B minus. Been okay so far.
Yeah, I think I have a B for Zeke Mayo, and it's just because he's been exactly what you said. He's been good, but he hasn't been consistently great. I mean, it's the two games. He had, 26 points against NC State and 21 against North Carolina. He also had 19 against Howard. Besides that, 12 points is the amount he's eclipsed. That was against both Duke and Creighton, so good going there. But I think for Zeke to get around that 14 to 15 range would just be the percentages going up a little bit. And I think as Kansas gets more comfortable offensively as a team, and Hunter Dickinson kind of really starts establishing himself, I think those percentages will go up for Zeke Mayo. I think you're right. Just the thing with him is Kansas needs Zeke Mayo to be a guy pretty much every night if this team is going to cut down the nets, right? Like Zeke Mayo probably should average about 15 to maybe 18 per game during March Madness if Kansas is going to make that sort of run with a couple, 25, 26-point games sprinkled in there. So for Zeke, it's just finding the consistency, and I think it's only going to improve as the season goes, as Zeke Mayo gets more comfortable.
No, I totally agree. And you're totally right. Like Kansas isn't going anywhere in March unless you look at that box score and Zeke's got 27 in a game. It's just going to have to happen. You see it in every single team that's been successful in March. Like Ochai, go look at the numbers he was putting up in March. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. And that wasn't even the best he was all season. That wasn't even his peak of that year. And he was still doing really high quality production. Zeke needs to get to this next level. He needs to be felt in every single Big 12 game for Kansas to reach their apex.
All right, we're going to bring up a wing now. The one that has been in the starting lineup the most often, that is Rylan Griffin. On the season, 6.9 points per game, 2.4 rebounds per game, 1.4 assists per game. And he's shooting 42% from the field and 32% from three. For Rylan Griffin, these numbers are down from what he was producing last year at Alabama. Last year at Alabama, he was at he's at 11.2 points per game as opposed to 6.9. And he was also shooting 39% from three. I mean, Griffin, I'm going to go C plus just because it hasn't exactly clicked yet. I think we're going to have, this is just another one of those situations where it's just going to have to take some time. These transfers coming in, learning Bill Self's system, learning their roles. And I don't think Rylan Griffin really knows exactly what his role on this team is yet, besides, spacing the floor, obviously. But yeah, just the 3-point percentage. That's what's concerning here. Rylan Griffin was brought in to be that high volume sniper from three. Hasn't exactly panned out to be that yet. So I'm going C plus.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C minus for those same reasons, honestly. I've been slightly more disappointed. Right. Just you have your team from last year and you address, okay, this team needs to be way better shooting threes. And you completely address that in the portal, and that's your entire selling point in the offseason. And then your big guy from that, starter in the final four, 40% three-point shooter, he's coming in shooting 32%. And now all of the people on Twitter and all those fans, oh, I thought Kansas was going to shoot this year. I thought Kansas was going to have better shooting this year. It's coming. It's coming. It's just like you said, it has not clicked yet, but it will happen. But for right now, I think Ryland's been below average. So I got him at a season average. I got C minus, just slightly below average. Those numbers are going to go way up, right? Those numbers are going to go up pretty much, I think, all across the board, to be honest with you. If his minutes go up like I think they will, I think he can finish near 10 to 12, like 11, like he was last year. Maybe can't get to 40% three point, but like 37, 38 coming from 32 this far into the season, that's going to be really good. That'll be over 40% in Big 12 play if he gets to that number.
I will say, freshman season for Rylan Griffin, he was 41 of 136, which is 30% from three. And now for his career, with only 34 attempts at Kansas, he's at 35%. So maybe last year at Alabama was a little bit of an
Yeah.
anomaly for him, just with the way they space the floor and the way that offense runs. We'll see. But Kansas is going to need Rylan Griffin shooting down the stretch. I'll tell you that. Let's move on to KJ Adams, another part of the core three that is coming back. He's averaging 9.4 points, 4 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists, and he's shooting 58.2% from the field with 1.2 blocks. I'm going with a B for KJ. You know, he's been good. He's had his moments. You know what you're getting every night. But I thought he would be maybe a little bit more dominant this season than he has been. I thought he would really take a step forward. And, you know, we were kind of saying, you know, second round draft pick
Yeah.
buzz.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case with KJ Adams right now. But I mean, he's a defender. He is what is makes this Kansas team ceiling so high defensively. So going with a B, solid B.
KJ's so hard to grade
Yeah.
because the stuff that he does well isn't gradable. So I really struggled with this one. But just the thing that bothers me is, and you touched on it slightly earlier, I don't think he's gotten better. He's not a, I haven't seen this year. I'm like, oh, KJ wasn't doing that last year. Like, yeah, he was. Everything I've seen him do this year, I've seen him do before. Like
Maybe
you said,
that
he
pull up
had,
mid range jumper is
okay,
he's
that's
added.
true.
Maybe.
That's
Maybe.
true. That's true. But he was still taking those, you know, and I'm sure he's been hitting them in practice for a couple years, which is why Bill's allowing him to take them now. And he's hitting those, and I get that, whatever. But it's just the flashes are there. But the bad this year has been like noticeably bad. It's been a different type of because there's so many dynamic playmakers on this team versus last year when there wasn't. You can live with the bad KJ Adams, the bad pass, you know, a couple missed weird layups that he doesn't, where he like contorts his body really strangely, gets away from a foul, blows a layup. Those are a lot more noticeable this year when you have a ton of shooters on the outside waiting for a kick out. So I went with B minus. I don't feel super confident about it. I think I kind of lean more towards your B honestly than a C plus, but yeah, it's I don't even want to say that like KJ's been KJ because I think he can be a lot better. And even I think he can even be better defensively. I don't even think his on-ball defense has been consistently great. I think that's also been flashes. So I'm interested to see how Big 12 play goes because a lot of coaches will have the KJ scout and the Dewan scout. And how is he going to manage through that when pretty much every team in the conference is going to know what he's going to do?
Yeah, if you look at last year's numbers, I know KJ was playing more minutes, but he's shooting 2% better from the field. Last year, he's averaging about 3 more points per game. He's averaging about zero point 0.6 more rebounds per game. Uh, just across the board, KJ was a little better last year. I mean, 3.1 assists. I get, you know, he was in a bigger role. He was kind of one of the main guys last year, but it's just kind of interesting to see with a minutes dip. He was at 33 and a half minutes per game last year, and now he's at about 29, and the numbers are dropping a little bit. So maybe some cause for concern there with KJ Adams. I think, yeah, just with this whole team, the best is coming. I mean, it hasn't clicked yet. We'll talk about it later, but the best is coming for this team. If KJ Adams is going to be a 9.5, 10 point guy, you're taking that. You're taking
Yeah.
that. The only thing with KJ that, you always want more is the rebounding, which again, down from last year, down from the year before whenever he was playing the five. It's just interesting. It's interesting stuff. Go rebound that ball,
He's
KJ.
got to rebound more, Sam. It's quite simple. He's got to go rebound the basketball more. He is only playing the four now. Hunter can't literally get every rebound. I mean, he probably could, but come on, you got to rebound. And I will say, the past 3 or 4 games, he's been around 5 or 6 rebounds the past couple games. So stay right there, KJ. That's where we need you at.
All right, let's move on to the big man inside. Let's move on to Hunter Dickinson. Just some quick stats for him. He's averaging 15.6 points, 10 rebounds exactly, and 2.6 assists per game while shooting 56% from the field, 33% from three. I didn't know this, but he's averaging 1.6 steals and 1.4 blocks, which is a pretty big positive when you're talking about Hunter Dickinson on the defensive end. He also ranks number 8 in defensive rebounding percentage and number 7 in just total defensive rebounds per game, and also ranks number 12 in the country in overall rebounds per game. I'm going with a B plus for Hunter Dickinson, Bez. I'll let you give your grade and everything.
So I've got A minus, and I know it's not been the Hunter Dickinson 22 and 11 every single night like we grew accustomed to. He just had a stretch this season where he only scored 15 points once across 5 games. Everything else was less. He has not had that poor of a stretch since the Big Ten tournament his freshman year at Michigan. And I went back and looked today because I was really curious. And he's still at 16 and 10. Like, come on. He's still putting up 16 and 10. And he has had a stretch that he hasn't had since his freshman season. He is now 29 years old. No, I don't know how old he is, but he's been in college for a long time. He'll be just fine. I still have a little above an A. I wouldn't give it an A like Dewan because honestly, the flagrant stuff, like, dude, you got to figure that out at some point. Like, you've been here for 5 years. How do you not know how to control yourself by now? Or maybe he just likes being a jerk. Maybe there's just that. But I can't give you an A, even though I like your production, even though that stretch was weird, but I've liked your production overall. You're too much of a minus at times, dude. It's just straight up. You just had weird stretches where you turn yourself into a minus. And that's never been his thing. So I think he'll eventually be an A for me, but you have him a little bit lower than I do.
Yeah, I'm going B plus just because I want more. I want more,
Get
Bez.
more.
I mean,
Yeah,
Kansas should be playing through Hunter Dickinson and he should be dominating games. I mean, he should just be dominating games. He is, like you said, 29 years old, playing his 5th year of college basketball, and he's been an All-American type of player for like 4 years. Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry, but if you're not averaging like 20 and 10 for this team,
I get it.
you're not going to get an A. You're not going to get an A. I'm not saying, that Hunter Dickinson has been bad. Like, I'm not saying that at all. Hunter Dickinson has been really steady, but I just want to see more. Like, I just think that Hunter Dickinson should be dominating games, and Michigan State and NC State, right, are the only 2 games that he
Yeah,
like really dominated. He was a nothing burger really against Creighton, which was one of the biggest losses, and against Mizzou. Didn't really show out in that game. So, yeah, Hunter Dickinson, I mean, this is Kansas' best player. This is who Kansas is playing through. Need a little bit more. Need that 20 and 10 to get up to the A status. All right, Bez, we both have the same grade for this cat. His name is AJ Storr. He has the lowest grade by far of any player on this list. I mean, let's call it like it is. He's been Kansas's most disappointing player. Bez and I both have him at a D plus, averaging 7.8 points, 1.8 rebounds, 1.2 assists, and he's shooting 41% from the field. AJ Storr, Bez, what are you thinking?
I said, what was it, last week that I wanted him to be the guy going forward. And I feel like we just took 5 steps back with that NC State game, man. I mean, it's disappointing is the only word to use. Frustrating you can use as well. It's now getting to the point where I'm worried that I'm not 100% he's going to stay with the team the whole year. I'll just say that. That's kind of, I'm a little worried about that. There's like a slight 1 to 2% in me that's like, man, does AJ even want to be here? Does he even feel comfortable in this system? I know he's not getting the minutes he wants. It's got to be frustrating for him to watch KJ Adams in practice every day and then not play ahead of him ever. But look, dude, at some point, look, you're getting paid a ton of money now. It's way different nowadays. They're not college kids anymore. Kansas gave you a bag, AJ, a bag. You have to contribute. You have to step up. And this is the whole thing with this NIL thing is like you give these kids this money and then they don't produce all year. You just burned it, right? There's no get back. There's no incentives. There's nothing like that. And it's frustrating to watch. I'm not paying it, so I don't care. It's not my money. But like, there's got to be some accountability. And I feel like there just hasn't been. And obviously the production on the court has not been there. So I was hovering between D and D plus, not even close to C minus.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me. Like, is it kind of like a tug and war between him and self? He doesn't really want to buy into what they're doing, but he wants to, like I'm not sure what the disconnect is because yeah, I mean, you go into the season, you're thinking that AJ Storr is going to be a top three scorer on this team. Like you're just thinking like what at Wisconsin last year, he was their number one guy. He was one of the best players in the Big Ten last year. He was one of the best scorers in the Big Ten last year. And it just hasn't translated. I mean, like I think it's a UNC game. He had a decent game, like 12 points, and then he dominated against Oakland. But besides that, I don't think he's had a single game in double digits. I mean, this is a guy you're really wanting to hover around that 12, 15, maybe even 15 points per game, and it just hasn't connected. 16.8 points per game at Wisconsin last year, shooting 43% from the field, probably chucking up a lot of shots, but
Yeah.
it's
You need
it
more
is
out of him. You
frustrating.
need more. You need more. Like I want to say go watch him at Wisconsin because it's awesome stuff, but don't because it'll make you sad that that player is just where is that guy? I don't know where he is, and I wish he would come to Lawrence because the Jayhawks could really use him.
Yeah. It's 4 double-digit games for him this year, 13 against UNC, 16 versus Oakland, 11 versus Duke, and 12 versus Creighton.
On a lot of shots versus Creighton too, by the way, an inefficient
Oh,
12.
very,
So,
very inefficient in all of these games besides Oakland. Very inefficient. And then back-to-back 2-point games for AJ Storr, 1-7 against Mizzou, 1-3 against NC State. And against Mizzou, there's a shot that he took, a three-pointer that had Bill Self like
yeah.
this, and it
Mhm.
was during the run. And, you make that shot, and maybe it's a whole different story, but you don't make that shot, and it just kind of continues this meh that's going on with Kansas and AJ Storr. Uh, it's disappointing, man. And honestly, the one thing that's concerning about it to me is if you're Bill Self going after some of these top portal guys next year, what if they say, it didn't, what about, AJ? It didn't work out with him. What happened there? Stuff like that. So I still think AJ is going to get back on track, Bez. Do you? Do you think so?
I I
You're
do
doubting.
because
You're
I
doubting.
I do because I know how good of a player he is. Just straight up bottom line, I know he's a beast. So there's always going to be hope when you're that good of a player. But and I just don't see that. I don't know. He seems like a good kid. He seems like he's got his head on straight. I don't really get the vibes of like locker room cancer or anything like that. So I'm still holding out hope, but I am worried for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the guys need him, and I'm sure the guys are all picking him up and trying to get him on track. So hopefully AJ Storr gets back on track because, we're looking at a 7-2 Kansas team. That's pretty all right. And what was thought to be one of their best players has not panned out at all. So you never know. AJ could turn it around. Let's move on to Flory. Flory Badunga. I'll say this, Bez, right now, probably one of my favorite players on the roster this season. I mean, he's just awesome. You gave him an A minus.
Yeah,
I went
dude.
with the B plus. You know, we're in the same range here. I'm curious why you had the A minus, Bez.
Because I think that when we started looking at the actual roster at depth chart before the season, I think we are like, man, he might not really get a ton of run. You know, he might get 10, 12 minutes, and which has kind of been where he's at. But he's at 6 and 5 per game in very minimal time. And he makes every shot he shoots because they're all dunks. And he's basically baby Doke. And it's been awesome to watch. Like you said, he's electric every time he gets in. Every like casual fan I know is like, dude, he's so much better than Dickinson. You guys got to play that Badunga guy way more than Dickinson. And like, I get it. If you don't actually know anything, of course you're going to say that because he's awesome to watch. He's super fun. Energy is palpable. And I give him, I was grading it on like, what were my expectations for Flory at this point in the season? I didn't think it would click for him as fast as it did, but it kind of seems like it. He's still learning how to play team defense. He has natural instincts and can block shots. When he figures that out, he's going to be really scary. But the team defense, he's still learning. Outside of that, I feel like he's fit in with the team way better than shoot Rylan and AJ guys we just talked about.
Yep.
He's fit in way better than they have. So I've been really high on Flores' production, and I'm going to be super high on him because I think that matters going into Big 12 play because you're not scared to put him out there,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is a completely different scenario we had with Del Marco last season, where there was not a trust there to him bring up the ball and handle it. With Flory, there's a trust. Hey, we need to spare Hunter 8 minutes here. I need you to give me 8 minutes. You can give that to Flory, and he's going to play well.
Yeah, we already saw it. We already saw it in the Duke game. Hunter
Yeah,
goes down,
literally.
Flory comes in, and everything's good. You know, Kansas is able to win basketball games with Flory in the lineup. Really, it's just perfect. Like Flory is one of like a few players on this team that really understand what their role is. Like he knows exactly what he's in there to do. He's in there to rebound. He's in there to block shots. He's in there to dunk basketball. I mean that is what Flory does. You know, uh, the one thing I will say, this is the only reason, Bez, why I didn't go an A.
Okay.
Fouls.
Yeah.
I think he's got a little bit of a foul issue right now. It seems like every time he checks in, it's like, oh, Flory's got 2 fouls. There we go. Like he's got them. He fouls a lot. If he learns how to control that a little bit more, I'd go into the A territory. But I mean, if we're being completely honest, like for Kansas, for this team, I'm sure Bill Self is probably giving him an A because Flory has been
100%.
exactly what this team needs. So, I'm changing it. I'm going A minus, Bez.
Oh,
A minus.
I just changed one too. You're gonna see it in a little bit.
All right. All right. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about the one.
Yeah, it's actually right now. So
Let's go into Diggy. Diggy Coit. I have an A here. Bez has an A minus. On the season, he's averaging 6.4 points, 2.1 rebounds, 1.7 assists. He's shooting 44% from the field, but 50% from three. Those are the type of splits you love to see right there. So, yeah, Diggy, Bez, why'd you change your grade? What was it before the A minus?
it was B plus before. Just like the energy stuff and scoring pop off the bench. But I was like, I just don't know how many big games he can play in because he's so undersized and not a lot of teams in, the Big 12, I would say, are undersized per se. I just worry about like his last 10 minutes were in foul trouble. Diggy, we're leaning on you. I worry about that a little bit, but 50% from three, I was not aware of. So my apologies.
Not many
to
shots.
Detroit.
Not many shots.
Well, 50% from three is half of your shots, which is pretty freaking good on this team right now. That I'll take it. I literally changed it because of that number. My apologies, Diggy. Got to respect your game more. I mean, like Diggy's been great. He might. I mean, if Shaquille Moore is 100% healthy, is Diggy even getting these minutes? So you got to look at it that way too. Of like the expectation you've had of him, the minutes he was probably told he was going to get versus what he's been doing and producing. Yeah, he's in the A territory.
The A for me is just based off the vibes, just his energy on the court, the way he talks in press conferences, Bez, like he has his head on his shoulders. Like, I don't know what Diggy Coit plans on doing after this, but he is going to be very, very successful in whatever he does, just because he's very humble. He's just a good guy. He's a good guy. That's simply what he is. And then on the court, he's a maniac. I mean, the way he guards
Right.
whenever somebody's bringing up the ball, it's awesome. I mean, you could see it. The fans in Allen Fieldhouse love it. He's also just an absolute sniper. 15 of 30 on the season from three. Best on Kansas by far. I mean,
Right.
everybody seems to be below 35% on this team. Golly. But not Diggy. Diggy's letting them fly, and he's letting them fly confidently. Yeah, I just Diggy, man. I love him.
Diggy, man. Love Diggy. Shout out to Diggy. Good for you, bud.
Yeah, I also think he's one of few people on this Kansas team who understand their role. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like Rakis understands his role, but he's only getting like 2 minutes a game. I feel like Diggy understands his role. I feel like Flory understands his role. I feel like Hunt, and DeJuan and KJ kind of understand their roles, but the other transfers,
Right.
some of the other guys are still trying to figure it out. All right, we got two more players on the list here. We got Zach Clemence and Rakis. Let's start with Zach Clemence. This is the biggest difference in a grade. Me and Bez have pretty much been right on par with each other here. I have a B for Zach Clemence, and Bez has a D. I want to explain why I have my B first, okay? Okay.
Go for it. Go for it.
Zach Clemence has actually been surprisingly good while he's been out there. I mean, has he not? Like I think it was the Mizzou game. I'm really struggling to remember here, but I think it was Mizzou. He came in, he played pretty well. He had like a steal. He had a couple rebounds. He was doing Zach Clemence things. I think he had a bucket in that one too. And I remember joking and kind of poking to Michael Swain of 24/7 Sports, being like, Zach Clemence to save the season, like to save the game against Mizzou right now. So I don't know. I just think that he's been pretty good whenever he's out there. I mean, he doesn't get out there much. He's probably not going to get out there very much, but whenever he's out there, I've liked what I've seen. He hasn't been bad, besides maybe a couple of the first games, the exhibition games were kind of like, oh, but since then,
Too much Clemens.
things has been good. Things been good.
Here's why we're both right. Because expectations coming into the season is he even going to see the floor? And he's actually has stats, which is great. There's a one and there's another one and there's an actual shooting percentage I see here. So you're right. His expectation, he's way above expectations. I am right because if he's in the game, shit is going down for Kansas in a poor manner. I mean, you look at like that Middlebrooks
You're
kid.
so right, though. Every time he's been in, it's been like an oh man moment.
Like,
You're so right.
I have no comfort in my body when that man is on the floor. And it's no disrespect to Zach, but like, I mean, it's kind of just based on the way he just runs and like moves around. I'm like, oh my gosh, just I have a girl like that on my team, which every time she gets it, I'm just like, ugh. You'll hear me swing it, swing it, swing it. Just pass the ball. Please get rid of it. Please get rid of it. Um, the NC State guy, Middlebrooks, Clemens, he gets a KJ in foul trouble, gets Hunter in foul trouble, and Flory, like you're saying, just immediately, there's no chance.
Two
And
fouls.
then so Bill's looking down the line. He's like, all right, Zach, let's go. You're going in. And he was serviceable. He
He
was
was.
serviceable. So maybe a D is too harsh, but for the actual on court product we're getting, I think a D is a little too harsh. But yeah, I mean, look,
People forget this was a former like
he
top
can
40
in it.
recruit,
I
by the
know.
way.
Sunrise Christian guy, Grady Dick's teammate. Like this guy's played with some unreal players, and he just never lived up to it. I don't know what it was. I think the rating was a little unfair for him. Might have been just huge dude who could shoot. So like you're gonna rate him high, but he just never grew into to be the player that Kansas needed. And so Zach, you're now if every single person has foul trouble, we need you for 6 minutes. And in that time, like you said, Sam, he's been about a B.
It's been pretty all right.
Be all right.
All right, last player. We got Rakese Passmore. I'm going A minus. You're going B plus. I mean, there's not much to say. He hasn't played a lot, but he's just been everything that was advertised to me plus. Like his shooting is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, he has just such a nice stroke, really high release on it, shoots it with confidence. I mean, I'm just really impressed with what I have seen from Marquise, and you can see the potential. It's there. Next year, Kansas fans, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun watching Marquise do his thing.
Yeah, he's still a little bit of a baby, but like you said earlier, knows his role. Just does. He knows his role. And that's really cool to see out of a freshman, especially a highly touted freshman.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, you're not going to be a whole lot this year because frankly, you're just not ready. But when you're in there, here's what you can do to stay in there for maybe a minute or two longer than I would normally do. And he's been doing those things. I got him at a B plus because he is strangely has this thing where immediately checking in, he catches the ball standing out of bounds, like in the corner. He's done it multiple times. And, it's one of those things where it's like, if I had a nickel for every time he did that, I'd have 10 cents, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. And it is weird that it's happened twice. And I think that's just a confidence thing. But yeah, I mean, all jokes aside, Ricky's just, he hasn't got a big opportunity slash responsibility yet, and it's not going to come this year, but he seems to be learning and really soaking everything in, which has been awesome to watch.
Even with the limited time, I legitimately think he might be Kansas's best defender as far as just kind of versatility out there on the wing, and probably best offensive rebounder on the
I like
team.
that. I
On
like
the team.
that. I
So,
like it.
Rakese, keep doing your thing, man. That we're really excited to see what you'll bring next season with a more defined role. I think Rakese is probably a starter on next year's team, if not the first guy Bill Self goes to off the bench. All right, we're gonna give no grade to Shaq Moore. Shaq Moore, obviously been dealing with some injuries. Played last game against NC State. Looks like he may be back, but you never know with the way that thing's going. He's back and he's not. So Shaq Moore, we're not going to give a grade on, but we're going to do a team grade. We're going to do a team grade here, Bez, to wrap up. I'll let you go first here.
All right, so I've got a B, and and I mean you've got it here, but like two losses out of non-con play, two thumbs up. I'd say that's really good. That's a hard schedule you just played. Come out of there with only two losses as a top 10 team in the country. That's a W. I would have had that as like an A minus though, probably if I wasn't actually watching the games, right? If I'm just box score watching, I'm like, oh, A minus. Kansas is just fine. They're on track. Couple weird losses, but that's a Kansas thing. They'll be just fine. But that's not the vibe that we're getting at all. It's, a lot of it is AJ Storr, man. I just don't have a good feeling about it right now. I'm still very hopeful because he is awesome and because I think he's a good kid. And I think this is a good locker room. I don't think there's any like locker room issues. But I do think there's a couple guys who really, really think they should be having bigger roles. And he's obviously one of them. And that's something that, a lot of teams just don't solve. They just don't figure out. That's the whole too much talent problem, which was kind of touched on for Kansas in the offseason of like, well, you went from nothing to all of a sudden having a lot of what you didn't have. How are you going to balance that out? We haven't seen it yet. Do I think we see it? Yes. I think Kansas will be fine. But for right now, I wouldn't even give it up to a B plus because I don't think it's been near the on-court performance of Kansas has not been what I would call an A, especially out of a Bill Self coach team. I think one positive to take, the defense has been on paper and all the metrics are saying really, really good, which is something that you and I weren't expecting necessarily coming in. So that's why I've got it as a B, not a B plus, not a B minus, right in there to B.
I went ahead and went with a C plus
Mm-hmm.
for the team grade. And I think honestly, as a team, if you had to, if you ask Bill Self this question, if you ask all the players this question, this is probably the most common response you would get because I don't think this team has played to its ceiling at all. Like at all has it played to its
In
ceiling
any
so
game.
far. And the other thing is, if you told me that, Kansas after the non-con, yeah, I get it, we got one more game against Brown, but if you told me that Kansas would walk out with 2 losses with that good of a non-con schedule, I would be, I'd take it as a win. I'd probably be like, yeah, like that makes sense. But it's just the way it's happened, right? It's the way the 2 losses unfolded. And you can't lose to your rival, Bez, and be anything above a C plus. You just can't do it. You
You're
can't
right.
lose to Mizzou at Mizzou and be in the B range to
Mhm.
me personally. So I
I
think that's
love it.
why it's a C plus. It's that simply right there. If Kansas beats Missouri, if that's even if they play
Hey,
terrible like they did, end up coming out somehow with the win in Columbia with that run
mhm.
at the end. For me, it's probably a B2, but I think you lose to Mizzou, your rival, C plus.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And just like the way that game played out was just disgusting. But then again, like NC State, you bounce back and you kind of crush them. And that's a good team. That's no slouch. They're gonna be in the tournament. You crush them. But like, what was the game where the Furman, you beat Duke, super high stakes, super intense game, a perfect, fall off opportunity against a really solid Furman team that can take you for, a good game. You blow them out. But that tricked us because then you lay an egg next week. So now am I getting tricked by NC State, this NC State game? Probably. I probably am. So we're going to find out. But yeah.
Yeah. That NC State team cannot score for the life of them.
Yeah,
So
that was a weird team. And MJ Rice gets 0 minutes. I had totally forgot he was even there.
I'm pretty sure he's left the program. I'm pretty
Oh
sure.
yeah, he's not even there.
Uh, Yeah, just on Kansas, I looked at kind of some stats and stuff, and there are some positives, right? Just being number 9 and Ken Palm defense, really positive. Another thing that Kansas really stands out on Ken Palm is the offensive rebounding. Uh, Kansas does not allow offensive rebounds, like at all. In fact, it's like number 13 in the country in opponent offensive rebound percentage. Now, Kansas doesn't get any at all, but they don't allow any. So that's something positive. The assist to turnover ratio, 1.74. That's top 15 in the country. Top 10 in assists per game, 19.0 assists per game. Your top 25 in field goal percentage, which just doesn't seem right based on how
I
poorly the
know,
is
right?
shooting
Yeah.
from three. But there are some stats, Bez, that are really concerning. And this is what also led to my C plus. Kansas is bottom 5 in the entire country. Bottom 5 in the entire country and free throws attempted per game. 12.6 free throws
Gross.
attempted per game. Jackson, the guy who leads the NCAA in free throws attempted, his name is Ketron Shaw at Maryland Eastern Shore. He has the same amount of free throws attempted as Kansas's team. The same amount, 126 free throws attempted for him, 126 for Kansas's whole team. This is a problem. I think this is a problem, Bess.
Hey, that kid can get to the rim. How about that? That's pretty impressive. Wow. Yeah, that's bad, Sam. Like also the field goal percentage thing, totally agree. How does that even happen? But on the flip side, the defensive rebounding thing, I see that because I always kind of think of that of like, hey, we actually rebound on defense really, really well. Like teams don't really. So I get that. Dude, Hunter Dickinson should be shooting 6 a game himself, 8 a game himself, but I don't know why it's not happening. AJ Store, get to the line. You're so good downhill. Get to the
Zeke,
line.
Zeke,
KJ Adams, I don't want him shooting free throws necessarily, but why isn't he shooting more? What changed from the past couple of years where I feel like he was at the line a lot more than he is now? Ryland probably not going to shoot a ton. Zeke, same thing to your previous point about 20 minutes ago. His one foul a game that he commits, that tells me on both sides of the ball that he's not being aggressive enough. Now, that means he's playing pretty good defense too because he's in the game a long time. That's hard to do. But Zeke Mayo should also be getting 6 to 8 free throws a game. I mean, if you just break it down, you've got 20 to 10, 10 to 0 in the first half, 20 to 10 minutes, 10 to 0 minutes in the second half. That's like 4 little quarters. If you can get to the free throw line once in each of those stretches, You're shooting 8 a game. So just on that basis, it doesn't sound that hard to do. So as a team, how are you getting 12 a game total? It's just the math isn't mathing. And it's not like Kansas is just chucking a bunch of threes and they're bad shots. I can't even really explain it. It's just
Who do
weird.
you think top three free throw? Let's do top four. Top four free throw shooters on this team.
In attempts per game,
Yeah, just total attempts on the season. There's not
I
many
would
attempts to count
oh,
here, Bez.
I mean, I would say Zeke's probably in there.
No,
Is Hunter
that's
in there?
that's the issue. That's the point I was going to make. Hunter has 29.
And then Juwan.
KJ has 21.
Okay.
Flory has 15.
Oh,
DeWan
I would never guess
16.
for
Sorry, DeWan has one more than Flory. So, and then from there, you got Zeke, 14 free throws attempted. AJ Store, 11. AJ Store, 9. Rylan Griffin, 11.
so bad, man. That's so bad. I mean, how many games has played? 10 games we've played now. And Zeke's at 1.4 free throw attempts per game. That means you're not getting to the line every game. Because you can't be, because you get 2 attempts when you get to the damn line, and you have less than 2 attempts per game. So what do you, come on, Zeke. And
It's
I might have
bad.
to drop him a letter grade for that.
This is actually pretty concerning. If you look at, some of the top, top 10 free throw shooters in the country, most of them are guards. 60% of them are
Really?
guards, right? Like the guards are supposed to be the guys who are getting downhill, who are getting to the free throw line. And it's really concerning that the top four is Hunter, KJ, Flory, and DeWan. Like that's concerning. That is
It is.
concerning.
There's
It's
no other
it's
way to say
weird.
it.
It's really weird, Bez. And I don't really know like how do you improve that?
Right.
Like I don't really like I'm not a coach, unlike you. So
Right, right. In my many years of experience, here's what I do with my teams. I mean, it's literally just you just got to like enforce your team at practice. Like you guys have to get downhill. In film, they're watching it. Like the coaches are showing them. Look how many opportunities you guys are giving up, and Zeke specifically to shoot a 17 or 18 footer, which is not a good shot. It's a good shot because you're a good shooter taking an open shot, right? So that's a good shot because of what you are. But good shots are fine, but great shots are layups and wide open 3-pointers. And Kansas is not getting enough of those. And the more layups you get, the more teams will foul you because they will keep getting annoyed you're getting layups. So you're just having no pressure on the rim. And when your pressure on the rim consists largely of KJ Adams, you're not really striking fear into a ton of teams, to be honest with you.
yeah. The other stat that is pretty concerning for this team is the 3-point everything. I mean, attempts per game, 20.9 attempts per game. That's 275 in the country. On KenPom, there are what 360 something teams in NCAA. I think we did this last episode. There's 364 teams in Division One basketball. Kansas is 275 in 3-point attempts.
Whoa.
Also, number 225 in makes per game. Of course, if you don't take very many, you don't make very many. On KenPom, KU is number 309 in 3-point field goals attempted as, in total field goal,
Right.
taken. So doesn't take a lot of threes, hasn't really been making them. And it's just weird, Bez, because that is exactly what was addressed in the portal was this. It was the 3-point shooting. And if you look at Kansas' best 3-point shooters, DeWan's at 30%, Mayo's at 35%, Store's at 34, Griffin's at 32. You got Diggy at 50% on 15 makes, and that is the only positive Kansas is getting really from the 3-point line.
Sam, do you think
Interesting.
this is a Bill Self thing potentially?
I don't know. I don't know what it is.
So weird.
I think it's a everybody thing, Bez. I think it's an everybody thing.
It's so weird. Like it's especially weird because you watch. I mean, Grady was chucking. Ochai was chucking. Even going back, LeGerald Vick, Dite, Frank. Bill is not the type of coach to like, oh, I'm in my old ways. I won't adapt to the game. That's not who he is. And he has the team to take, he's got the chuckers, right? You've got Zeke is like Devontae light, right? Like very, very light, like very diet, very light Devontae. That's kind of how Zeke plays. Let him go. Let AJ go. Let Rylan go. Let him shoot. Let him shoot. We just haven't seen it yet. And I mean, there's something going on that we can't see as, people not literally in the program that's happening. And, we'll just have to wait and watch it unfold in front of us. But just these numbers, just staring at him, it's, as you said, concerning, super weird that you have the roster for it, but you're just kind of still, I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is weird. I'm trying to figure out last year what the 3 points taken per game
I bet it was
was. How many total games did Kansas end up playing last year, Bez? Can you find that for me?
I can find it. It's
What
going
was
to
the final record?
somewhere in the 30s. Uh. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, the football team was 5-7 this year and 9-4 last year. If you're interested in that,
23 and 11. I got it.
okay.
No, 34. Last year, Kansas only took 16 a game. I don't think that's correct, but so lower last year, but with less
I
shooting.
would think it was lower last year.
All right, let's think about that. Let's go to the Natty team. 3 points attempted.
That's really what I want to see because I feel like that team is shooting a lot more.
Well, it
But
was
also, like, it's the same core three as last year. So is that just the simple answer of like it's literally just DeJuan, Hunter, and KJ, and they just don't shoot threes? So I don't know.
that
I
could
don't
be the case.
I mean, even like Furphy's lights out. He was chucking a little bit, I feel like, but I don't know, man. Like LeGerald Vick is not like better than I think these guys that we have now. And he got to do whatever the hell he wanted. So I'm just like confused. And it worked. He was awesome when he wasn't being a mental basket case. So I'm just confused as to why this is now a thing that we're doing.
Yeah. It is interesting, but once Big 12 play gets going, that's whenever we're really going to start seeing who Kansas is, what they want to run, what their identity is. All right, Bez, I think we wrap things up pretty well with the grades. Again, the team grade, I went C plus, Bez went B, and I actually put this in Chat GPT real quick. Our average of all of our grades given out for the players, right? If you do the GPAs, was a B. So you technically had the correct
I
team
win.
grade.
Wow. Look at
Nice,
that.
Bez. Way to go.
Just a studious man, me.
Well, all right, y'all. That's all we have for you for now. We will be back very briefly at the under four, just talking about what is coming up here on the Hum Podcast as we move into conference play and the season really gets going. Stay tuned with us, y'all.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines for making all of our picks and predictions, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money to get it. This is what you have to do to make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the rest of the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and the thing that I love the most, a nice little parlay boost, as well as a ridiculous array of prop bets for anything that you could possibly imagine betting on. From odds on getting to the Final Four to national championship futures, I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app. Use that code FIELD and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod in any podcast app. Like and share the YouTube videos that you enjoy. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping here and talk about what's coming up on the Hum. We got the Brown game coming up on Sunday. We'll have an episode out after that game, kind of recapping that. And then after that, we'll have on Fran Fraschilla before the West Virginia game to give us a little West Virginia preview. So I'm really excited for that. And then, you got the UCF game. And then after that, we got Evan Maya. The statistics guy has his own basketball statistics website. He will be coming on before UCF, I believe, to chat just on what he thinks of KU this year. We're also working on getting a John Fanta to join the show sometime this year. So we're working on some guests to bring you guys some good content. So be on the lookout for some cool guests coming up here on the Hum. With that being said, that's all we have for you guys today. Thanks for joining.